detected. Detected. Clear under attack.
Prepare to die.
Imaging completed. Research.
Non-vigilant.
Imaging complete. Imaging structure.
Who ordered awesome with a side of epic? Yes, it's going to be fantasy versus free. I think this is definitely the headliner of the night since both these guys are so damn good. But alright, I didn't write up a who's screwed, who's not so screwed sheet for this particular match because I don't think a winner or loss from either of these guys is going to decide the group. Although, as it's been stated before, both of these guys can't move into the round of 8 together. It's impossible. If they do both move up, it's going to be one or the other, or neither if the Zerg take them down. But either way, there's going to be a Zerg moving out of this group. Guaranteed. Except, down at the 8 o'clock position in purple is free. That means up at the 2 o'clock in orange is fantasy. Cross positions, giant map, 2 excellent players. What more could you possibly ask for? I was going to commentate this series yesterday, but then I was like, meh. I think I'll get beer and pizza instead. So that's what I did. I went out with a few co-workers to a place called Pies and Pints. Got a pie, got a pint, and it was excellent. Yeah, they have these weird pizzas there. They had, I don't know what they call them, just specialty pizzas, I guess. They had a pizza that had gorgonzola and grape. I was like, I've never seen grapes on a pizza. I have to get this. So I got it, and it was actually excellent. It was excellent. Good day. That's a good day in my book, and that's pretty much all I did all day. Besides ending the night with Jack Daniels. Alright, let's get into this. Let's get a couple of predictions from the Nukenites. Here's one from Blue Sunset 2202 writes, I think Fantasy will handle free and move out of his group. First. Smiley face. Go Fantasy. By Fancy. I don't think that guy could spell. Alright, here's another one from George Truly. By the way, that wasn't Blue Sunset, that was misspelling. That was a guy on the sign. Here's one from George Truly, writes, free to win the entire OSL. This is where you read it first. So that dude called it, if it happens like that anyway. Pretty, that guy has a autograph, I see. Speaking of autograph, I think it's going to take me a little bit longer to get to my Stork thank you video for my Stork autograph. I got to get that thing framed, too. I got to find a frame for it. I'll get on that anyway. Alright, let's see what these guys are doing. As I said, this is a cross position, so we're not going to see any cheesiness from the guys. Early push or a timing attack isn't really viable since the map is so large. They've got those high ground areas, and it's cross positions. So this is going to be a knockdown, drag-out, just brawl from these two guys. Two spectacular S-class players. Yeah, I'll put them in S-class. Why not? They're like AAA class. Close to S. I would put Fantasy at S-class maybe a year or so ago. And he had a pretty long win streak there for a while, too. But his win streak was broken. And since it was broken, he's lost a couple more games, I think. So Fantasy not doing that great, but I think he has the potential to bring himself back up in this matchup. This used to be his best matchup. Maybe it still is his best matchup. I didn't look up his statistics before the game. But he's always been great versus Protoss. And alright, both guys going out to scout, looking for cheese in the meantime. Yeah, Free was looking to the side everywhere for the cheesiness from Fantasy. But I love this map so much. Love this map. It's just such a cool map. I've been playing on it a lot too. And Battle.net, most people have never even seen it. They're like, what is this map? I've never seen this map in my life. I was like, do you watch Pro League or OSL? They're like, well, I used to, but I haven't seen this one. Although this is an OSL exclusive, so I guess Pro League doesn't really count. And there is Free looking around with that first Zealot. He wants to push the front with the first Zealot, take out a Marine if he can. But Fantasy already getting his first Vulture out. Of course, he wants to get the Vultures as quickly as he can because that is by far his best unit. Fantasy's Vulture control better than anyone's. Hands down. No one can deny that. Although mine showed some pretty good Vulture control in the last game, but That was the last game, and that was Mind. Mind is not Fantasy. There's Fantasy chasing down the Zealot. No doubt he's going to be able to take this down. Yeah, that Zealot's not going to live. My life for ire. Yeah, Yoda Zealot as he dies. And the Dragoon trying to save him. The Dragoon tried his best, but he wasn't there in time. It's a tragic story of the Dragoon and the Zealot. I tried, Zealot, as the Zealot haunts him in his dreams. Why didn't you save me? I tried. Actually, the Dragoons are dead too, so I guess they're haunting each other. But alright. There's Fantasy going in, trying to get the Scout free. Is going to let him in. Yep, that Scout is going to see everything. Seeing that the Dragoon range is not spinning, he's going to find the robotics facility and get all of this important information. Oh, Fantasy, just got everything. And Free let him in. Rats. And he saw the second base coming up, too, so he's going to know whether or not he needs to expand or push. Has that first tank at the front, although Free is not putting on the aggression. He's not going to risk pushing all of his Dragoons to the front, only to have them intercepted in the middle by a Vulture or something with mines. He knew that the Vulture was out pretty quickly, so he knows the mines are just another step away. And I think that's what Fantasy's researching right now. Actually, it's most likely Siege, because he wants to protect his front. But the Academy on the way already. For Fantasy, the second base up, transferring all the probes over. Free's play always impresses me. I mean, sometimes he fails, but most of the time he's just a solid, rock-solid player with excellent mechanics. And I think he does have the potential to win an OSL. Of course, getting past players like Fantasy, and he slipped in his game. He's been slipping in his games against Zerg pretty recently, too. I mean, these are all Zerg-favored maps. You have to come up with a special strategy to beat the Zerg if you're a Protoss. Although I saw a recent game on Icarus in the Pro League where Stork took down a Zerg, so definitely not impossible. But it hasn't happened yet in this OSL. I'm waiting for the first Protoss to be like, yeah, I'm going to kick some Zerg butt. It's going to happen. I don't know who's going to do it first, though. Alright. Mines being laid by Fantasy at the prospective third base location. So if Free wants to expand, he needs to go down there with an observer or take his inside 8 o'clock base. And there's Fantasy trying to get the high ground. That's smart of him to take these little high ground slivers, much like Heartbreak Ridge from a couple of seasons back. This one has some weird high ground areas, which makes it great to hold with siege tanks, but also makes it good for flanks for Protoss, I think. As long as you get that high ground and not fighting up the high ground with the Dragoons or anything, trying to fire up the high ground, which Free is trying to do right there, landing almost none of the Dragoon shots on that. Alright, getting rid of the Vulture and the mines, so now Free is going to lay down his third base. But it looks like Fantasy is already coming down with another lot of troops. I don't know what those are, moving down the map. There's I wish the observers would look at that. Oh, the tank's moving down now from Fantasy, so he's going to position himself and take down that third base if he can. But he's got to get the high ground area, and that's what Free's got to stop from happening. He's got to keep some Dragoons positioned on both of the high ground slivers next to his natural to fight back Fantasy. Now Fantasy is retreating back to his base, getting a scan, making sure there's nothing ridiculous coming his way. But the Citadel of Adun on the way for Free. And I think he's working up to Arbiters from the Citadel. It'd be the most logical thing to do on this map. This is not a good carrier map. Even though there's those high ground slivers, yeah, you're just asking for it if you go for carriers. Especially against a player like Fantasy. I mean, Fantasy is good at anti-carriers. Not as good as Flash, of course, but he knows how to deal with it. Okay, there's pesky Vultures out looking for an in to harass these bases. Trying to move past, finds a nice grouping of Dragoons, can't get past that. And the Dragoons are going to kill this Vulture, trying to sneak into the 6 o'clock base. So far, Free has done a good job denying that famous Fantasy harassment. But uh-oh, these Vultures sneaking by. Might run into another grouping of Dragoons. They do. There's Free trying to block his front a bit, making sure the Vultures don't get in. He knows how dangerous they are. He was transitioning his probes, decided to run them back to the natural expansion, lest he lose them. There's the Templar Archives and the Stargate, so we are going straight into Arbiters. There's Free losing a couple more probes as he tries to transition. So that's not good, but he's going to take down these Vultures and be okay anyway. Fantasy has already taken his third base at the inside 2 o'clock. Neither of these guys expanding out too far yet. No hidden bases, as Fantasy tried to do in the Incred OSL Finals against Stork. Threw down a hidden base, but back then Fantasy wasn't nearly as good of a versus Protoss player. He was a huge underdog in that final against Stork, and if he faced Stork again in the finals, like if he faced Stork in this OSL again in the finals, that would be so epic, by the way. But I think he'd be much more of a contender, even though he took Stork over 5 games. Those 2 wins that he got were pretty cheesy, using the plasma. The drops on plasma were probably the cheesiest thing he did in that series. In the straight-up games, though, Stork just completely outclassed him. But I don't think that would happen these days. I think they're pretty toe-to-toe. Stork is still very stellar against Terran, but we can get into that debate a little bit later, especially if these guys face each other in the round of 8, which is what I want. I want it. But factories, more factories coming down for Fantasies, getting a few more Vultures down to the 6 o'clock position. I'm trying to do some more harassment. We might start dropping soon, actually. Alright, building more supply depots at the back. 3 supply depots at the same time. Yeah, he's going for a pretty big push soon, building 3 additional factories to go with his buttload that he already has. Alright, let's see what Free can do. He's going to get that first Arbiter out. What's he going to do after the Arbiter? He's going to go for Recall. I think a Recall could be extremely effective, since it's... is it a sunken main? I forget already, but I'm pretty sure it is a sunken main. But yeah, recalling into a sunken main, always good. Especially if you can stasis the choke, but it's a little bit harder to do it this early in the game. But a lot of Dragoons fending everything off from Fantasy. Fantasy backing off, knowing he's outnumbered with Dragoons. But also knowing he can sneak some Vultures in as he's distracting those Dragoons and lay mines on the high ground, taking the high ground with those mines. That's going to suck for Free. But Free does have those Zealots there blocking the choke into the natural, so he's doing okay. Free at the same time is putting down his 4th base too, so is Fantasy. They're macroing heavily in this game. A 2nd Stargate for Free, so both these guys are in good shape. We're going to see some massive battles now. And gateways all over the place for Free, so he might be expanding to a 5th base soon to support all of this. I can't see him supporting all of those gateways with just these 4 bases, especially if they're being harassed by Fantasy, but we're going to see. Fantasy building a starport so he can get to his science facility. As I said, his 4th base is on the way too. They're both trying to take the corners. They're going to start running into each other soon, though, if they start taking more bases. The front being scanned by Fantasy as he sees all of the Zealots that are in. I hope he scanned the main. I'm pretty sure he must have scanned the main and sees what is coming his way. But he has plenty of factories to deal with carriers if they were on the way, which they're not. But okay, Free fending off the Vultures, a little bit more Vulture harassment for Fantasy. He's going straight for that new base. He spotted it too, so he didn't even need to waste a scan on that. He spots the 4th base coming up, so he's going to know he needs to push pretty soon. Oh, killing almost all the probes that were transferring. A lot of probes, only 2 probes left in that little transfer line. But Free's going to be able to get a massive attack soon. He has a lot of Zealots to break through the tank line. That's really going to be the most important part. Getting rid of the tanks so it isn't as much of a pain in the butt to push up through the high ground areas. Because that can be tough. But the first Arbiter is out, waiting on the energy for probably stasis. That's probably what he's going to do first, go for a stasis attack at the front. Fantasy has a nice grouping of tanks on that high ground, has them all on the high ground to protect all of his bases. 4th base comfortably mining, building mines everywhere, plopping down those mines, just preparing for a recall. Oh, I can just imagine Free recalling into that base, everything exploding. That could be game deciding. So hopefully Free goes in with an observer first before he tries to recall anywhere. But alright, here comes the first attack from Free. I think he's going to go for a stasis attack. Fantasy preparing for this, laying mines everywhere. He has a huge grouping of Vultures That's going to help him a lot in keeping the distance between both of the armies, the tank army and everything else. Man, look at all these tanks from Fantasy. His ability to just get out more tanks than I've ever seen in my life is just ridiculous sometimes. He really is I Love UV incarnate. But yeah, Free needs to group up these zealots, but send them out in their own little groups. He needs to spread them out so they don't die to a couple of mines. But this is a recall, actually, from Free. He is going for a recall at this natural expansion. The mines, no mines inside the main, it seems. But Fantasy he unseized all of his tanks. He's going to go into the main with those. But Free recalls a bunch of troops back here. I think he's going for the supply depots or something, trying to kill the tech or something. But he's taking down the starport, which has science vessels coming out of it, so that could be critical. Yeah, he's going to focus in on that starport, take it down. So nice, no science vessels for a while for Fantasy. So that was a good snipe, but he needs to snipe a few more important buildings to make this recall worth it. Recalls usually lose. They usually lose a lot of troops. Take the Protoss player down a lot of troops, so it's good to snipe all the important buildings you can. I think the science facility went down too, sniping supply depots too, so I think that Free has gotten his damage done that he needed to get done, but now he's got to protect his new bases. He's trying to throw down more bases. He threw down the 5 o'clock base, threw that down. He's trying to throw down the 10 o'clock too, although that was harassed by Fantasy. I think he might be overextending himself a bit, because he's gotten a lot of damage done. Really, all he's got to do now is group up some units, go for an attack at the front. But 3 forges, only one of them spinning, but I have a feeling that the other 2 are going to kick in soon. Yeah, this is a heavily macro-focused build from Free, as the probe going insane there, but more supply depots being built from Fantasy. He lost everything back here. And he's going to have to rebuild his starport and his science facility, which is not going to be very fun. Waiting on those science vessels. I mean, the EMP to stop the recall is needed at this stage in the game. So Fantasy, he's hoping right now that Free will recall into a huge minefield, so that'll buy him some time to get back up his science vessel count and use EMP to protect against any future recalls. But man, look at all these tanks. That is ridiculous from Fantasy. He's grouped up all of these tanks. He hasn't lost any in this game, I think. So, Free actually trying to take this little high ground area, but he might be poking the bear, because I do think Fantasy has enough tanks to take down Free. So Free's got to be a little bit more careful and not block himself in with this attack. He is coming up at the front. He has those High Templar there. He definitely needs High Templar to fight back Fantasy, but he is getting the retreat. Loses a High Templar. That's very bad. Very bad. But, yeah, Free going for High Templar is a great strategy, but he needs a shuttle to ferry those High Templar around. Drop them at the front as the siege tanks are attacking everything else. As they all do one volley, drop the High Templar, storm everywhere, pick them back up before the siege tanks have a chance to fire again. That's usually the best strategy for a Protoss player to use when going for High Templar against a Terran, but... Alright, Fantasy's still stuck at 4 bases, but 4-base Terran is still extremely powerful. Although the longer this game goes on, the less powerful it's going to be. But a couple of storms don't take down any tanks, though. Could have used a couple of layered storms in that attack, but I think that High Templar went down, too. Free still isn't using any shuttle play to drop his High Templar out front. I can harken that back to the Incarate OSL Finals, too, when Stork... And that's how he ended up beating Fantasy, dropping some High Templar. But this is going to be another recall at the natural expansion. Taking down some SCVs, but Fantasy is going for the counterattack. He's going to try to take down a couple of bases, do some base trading, as he uses a minimal defense to clean this up at his natural. So that was a very failed recall from Free. He didn't recall too many troops in, but it was just enough to leave himself a bit vulnerable to this attack, especially considering the amount of tanks that are in there. That's ridiculous. But 2 High Templar are enough to save these bases, as long as he uses them effectively. Although High Templar on the ground is not that effective, because Fantasy's going to find it, focus in on those High Templar, take them down first, especially with Vultures. I mean, the Vultures are so speedy, they can just go in, snipe the High Templar, get out of there. That might be what he's trying to do now. He's taking the high ground with those Vultures. And Free, he has a ton of bases. Free, I think he's definitely overextended himself. I don't think he can protect all these bases as Fantasy focusing in on the Nexus. The Nexus at the 6 o'clock goes down. So Free needs a lot more maneuverability now. He maybe needs a recall on top of these troops to protect himself, but there's Free trying to transfer his last remaining probes out of that 6 o'clock base. And Fantasy's actually taken down the natural expansion at 2 and gotten himself in a position where he can take down the main, so Fantasy might have just locked this down. Free's going to have to go for that clump and not waste storms like this on single tanks. Still doesn't have a shuttle in, so Fantasy's just going to focus in on those High Templar and take them down. But still, 3 forges spinning. That is a huge advantage for Free as long as he keeps up his macro, keeps those bases that were destroyed, keep them coming up. And he definitely can't afford to lose his production buildings inside the main, so he needs to focus all of his almost said energy again. Nice. I did that last week. That was ridiculous, but alright, there's Free being caught on the high ground. He does still have the high ground, but still, Fantasy has a ton of troops. And Free's army is actually split up. Oh, this is horrible for his army. He's going to lose pretty much everything. He has a small counterattack going up with some Zealots, but he's going to lose another base down here at the other 6 o'clock. A couple of High Templar are there to protect that, but only High Templar is not going to get much done. I think Fantasy's smart enough to just go in with a couple of tanks at a time, not let them clump up too much. But Free is going to lose that base. So hopefully, I mean, at least he didn't lose his production buildings. He kept those, but there's another storm from Free on top of the tank line, but Fantasy hasn't devoted his entire army to taking this down. He's already working his way up to the 10 o'clock base, too, to get another attack there. So Fantasy is definitely doing an excellent job just making Free's life a living hell. Yeah, Free can't focus on all of these different attacks at once, and Fantasy knows that. That's why he's going for all of them. But Fantasy, let's see. Fantasy, he doesn't have his 5th base yet. Unless he took that inside. Yeah, he took the inside 2 o'clock, so that would give him the 4 bases. He's still stuck at 4, but yeah, Free overextended himself so much. It seems that Fantasy is going to be able to get this done. It wasn't quite paying attention there, though. So he loses a couple of tanks. But oh, he's going for another base. He's taking out a lot of bases from Free. And look at this, Free does not have the unit to protect himself. So yeah, definitely overextended. And he's going to lose a lot of bases as a punishment. I'm punishing you for taking the bases. But okay, Free looks like he's going for the counter attack, which could be very successful since Fantasy has most of his troops out in the field taking down bases. Yeah, Fantasy floating his own base over to take that one down at the 3 o'clock. And yeah, taking out the 5 o'clock at the same time. Free is not doing very well. Not very well at all. Alright, he has a grouping. Let's see what he can do with this grouping of troops. Coming out at the same time with 3 Arbiters. He's got a stasis everywhere. Stasis over the science vessel so no more EMPs can land. Throwing his Zealots in first. Doing a pretty good job of taking out this troop. But Fantasy coming in with his reinforcements. He has plenty of tanks to protect himself at home. I think Free just kind of fell apart in this game. But he's going to be able to take out the starport again. That can give him some advantage. But the tanks are closing in. The tanks are closing in. So Free's got to get out of there again. Which, retreating at this stage in the game after losing that many bases, that's got to hurt. That has got to hurt. And Fantasy has secured his 5th base. And he's already mining from it. So Fantasy, nice timing attack from him, knowing just when to go in. I guess I wouldn't call that a timing attack, but it was definitely a good timing from him to attack when he did. I think he scanned the amount of base and went, oh crap, I got to do something about this. And he did. There's a little bit of Zealot harassment. If that Zealot drug one mine into that mineral patch, and between the mineral patches, oh, he could get so many SCV kills, but it's doing pretty good on its own. Dragging the mine. Oh, trying to attack the mine. That's stupid Zealot. I guess he just doesn't like mines, but alright. Fantasy grouping at the top again. He has 3 science vessels now to get the EMPs on the Arbiters. So things are looking very grim for Pretty. Yeah, I think that Free's going to lose his 2nd game in this OSL, and man, that's got to hurt. He isn't guaranteed to drop out, but things are not looking very good at all for Free now. He does have a lot of production buildings up at the top and the bottom of the map, but seems he just can't keep up. I mean, he lost so many bases, he definitely can't support all of the gateways he has down. I think that's hurting him a lot. When he protects the 6 o'clock, he put down that 6 o'clock again. Now he's trying to protect this base up at the 10 o'clock, but I don't think that's going to be successful either. He does get one stasis of the tank at the choke, which is pretty smart. It's going to buy him some time at least. But not very much time. There's Fantasy grouping up. Those tanks are ready to get in there. And alright, I'm not sure what Free can do from this stage in the game. I mean, High Templar can definitely help him, but getting the right storm placement is going to be nearly impossible, especially without a shuttle. Yeah, he hasn't done any shuttle play in this game. Taking the inside, 8 o'clock again, and there's the stasis lapses in Fantasy moving into that 10 o'clock base, and now Free's deciding to clean up the mines outside of his 6 o'clock before moving out to do anything else. He loses a lot of production buildings at the 10 o'clock. Fantasy taking all of that down with ease. There's one High Templar popping out there that's going to be completely useless, so wasted minerals, wasted gas down the toilet. As Free is moving up to this brand new base. This is one of Fantasy's only remaining mining bases, so it is good to take that down. But, okay, Fantasy's not lifting off. Not lifting off. He's going to lose that command center. So the command center goes down. Fantasy's newest base goes down. So Fantasy doesn't have a whole lot of mining. But he has such a massive army. That's really what Free has to contend with. It's just the size of Fantasy's army is just huge. Absolutely huge. He's just about maxed at 170 population. 173 now. Over 200. Next to Free is 138 over 190. So Free is still not doing well, although taking out that base was good, and he's already putting down a couple more bases that were lost earlier. He's still playing catch-up to Fantasy. As Fantasy, I think he floated his commands, his own command center from one of the 3 o'clock bases to the other, which is ridiculous. He denied himself a ComSat station there, although I guess he has his science vessels out. He doesn't have to worry about scan that much. Alright, Free fighting this back, trying to hold the high ground to the best of his ability. But now Fantasy's moving in with his siege tanks. His pretty big grouping of troops. Now Free's trying to go in with some stasises. He doesn't grab all the tanks, though. The Arbiter's completely out of position to get the stasises in. I think they might have been EMP'd. No, they were not. One stasis of the tanks. But still, fighting up this high ground, Fantasy, this is exactly what he wants. He wants Free to come up the high ground to him, so it makes it easier to get that splash damage on. But if Fantasy comes in with reinforcements, he'll be able to take this engagement. But Free, almost taking the engagement. Yeah, here come the reinforcements from Fantasy, locking down this game, I think. Taking that battle in the middle, and Free is dwindling. He is not doing well. He took 2 more bases, but he can't defend them, and he doesn't have them saturated at all, unless he ran all of his probes, which could be a possibility from that 6 o'clock to the 5 o'clock. But yeah, the observers are pointing out that Free doesn't have much mining. Of course, Fantasy doesn't either, but Fantasy has the troop advantage now. And alright, let's see what the guys are doing. Fantasy pushing through the brand new base at the inside 8 o'clock. Is not even saturated. I think the probes all might have died there or something. There's Free pushing up. He has one storm taking out one tank and fighting back, but I think that Free is fighting uphill now. Things are not going well for him, and he loses all of his probes at the 6 o'clock base, trying to take another one at the 10 o'clock. I've seen Free go for the strategy a lot lately. Take as many bases as he can and hopes he holds on to most of them. But he just doesn't seem to have the units to protect himself once that big Terran push comes up. I mean, going for High Templar is a nice adaptation of that build. I haven't seen him go for that before with this type of thing, but I think he really needed a shuttle to protect those High Templar. You've seen a lot of High Templar die in this game, kind of needlessly, and that's because they were on the ground and not up in a shuttle. There's the sigh from Free, as sweat pouring down his face. He gave it his all, but Fantasy has already started expanding again. He retook that 3 o'clock base, and Free trying to transfer some more probes into that inside 8 o'clock, but the mines are being drug everywhere. More mines for Fantasy. Oh, going right into the huge clumping of Zealots. So there's Fantasy getting the scan there, trying to see if it's safe to push forward. No more forges spinning, although Free is probably close to maxed upgrades for all of his units. He has +2 armor, +1 shield, +2 attack. So he's getting there. He's getting there. Those shielding upgrades are very expensive. Not usually worth it to get those until the later stages of the game. But this is a pretty late game now, as Free's pushing out, trying to make it safe for those zealots to attack the tanks. Alright, there's Fantasy still mining comfortably. It's 12 o'clock. He still hasn't branched out any further. I'm surprised that Fantasy hasn't taken another base. I think he can afford to protect it. But now he's going to protect that 3 o'clock as he's coming down, surrounding all the troops from Free. There's Free getting a nice harassment, though. Just look at the huge amount of troops that Fantasy has. Yeah, Free has given up now. He's already taken his hands off the keyboard, and that's when you can tell a pro gamer's pretty much given up. Unless they're drenched in sweat or they have an itch that they need to scratch, it's not usually a good idea to take your hand off the mouse or anything. There's 2 lonely gateways down at the 5 o'clock position. Just kind of sitting there, you know. There's Fantasy getting rid of everything else down at that base. Free did a good job. I got to give him credit for fighting Fantasy back, keeping him at low econ this whole game, because he has grinded down the econ from Fantasy throughout this whole game. But, yep, there's the GG from Free. Runs out of everything, and he is drenched in sweat. It's ridiculous. But now Free does not have a very good chance of moving into the round of 8. But Fantasy, on the other hand, finally securing a win in this group, putting himself in a better position. But if he doesn't win against Hydra, yeah, the Zerg are going to move out of the group, which would be unthinkable, going against my predictions 100% completely. Alright, this has been Nuke. I will see you guys soon for more commentaries.
여러 판단했을 겁니다. 근데 그런 상황에서 테란이 할